No blood in the water, no final battle, no dramatic chase caught on film. One of the most successful predators evolution has ever produced. For 400 million years, sharks have ruled the oceans. Here before the dinosaurs, they outlived every one of them, survived 5 mass extinctions that wiped out most of life on Earth. By any measure, the great white shark, 3 tons of muscle, teeth and instinct, is one of the most successful animals evolution has ever produced. So, when marine biologists reported that great white sharks were fleeing entire regions and never coming back, it sounded impossible. But it was true. Not disease, not overfishing, not pollution. Another predator. One the great white shark had never had to fear. Until now. Off the southern coast of South Africa sits one of the most famous great white shark habitats on the planet. The waters around Gansbaai, an area divers named Shark Alley. For decades, this was ground zero for great white research and tourism. Cage diving operators built businesses around near guaranteed sightings. Scientists tagged hundreds of sharks here, tracking the same individuals. Returning year after year, season after season, like clockwork. Then, starting in the mid-2010s, the clockwork broke. Sightings didn't just drop, they collapsed. Boats, once spotting a dozen sharks in a single outing, went entire days without seeing one. Tagged sharks returning to this coast every year for over a decade stopped coming back. Researchers checked tracking data, found sharks hundreds of kilometers away, staying away. This wasn't just a gradual decline from environmental pressure. It was sudden, near total. When scientists lined up the timeline, every major disappearance matched the arrival of one specific pair of orcas. Not a fight anyone witnessed, just an arrival, and then an absence. The ocean's most feared predator wasn't beaten in battle. It left before the battle could even happen. If sharks were simply avoiding a fight, the next discovery raised a darker question. What happens when they don't get away in time? Over the following years, several great white shark carcasses washed up along the South African coast. From a distance, each looked almost untouched, skin intact, muscle intact, even fins. Usually the first damaged in violent encounters were undamaged. When researchers carried out necropsies, they found one organ, and only one, missing in nearly every case: the liver. Until you understand what a great white's liver actually is, this might not sound significant. It can account for up to a quarter of the animal's entire body weight, saturated with oil, the shark's buoyancy system and fuel tank for migrations thousands of kilometers, the single most calorie-dense part. The removal wasn't consistent with a chaotic attack. Wounds were clean, precise, located in almost the same spot on every carcass, just behind the pectoral fins, where the liver sits closest to the surface. This wasn't an animal tearing into prey indiscriminately. This was an animal knowing exactly where to go, taking exactly what it wanted, and leaving the rest behind. Researchers had a word: surgical. To understand how a wild animal could hunt with such precision, you must first understand who was hunting. 2 killer whales became closely associated with these attacks, a pair researchers identified by their distinctive dorsal fins, one bent to the left and the other to the right. They became known as port and starboard. Wherever they appeared, great white sharks disappeared. But port and starboard weren't operating on instinct alone. Orca society revolves around tight, bonded family groups. Mothers, grandmothers, and offspring often remain together for decades. Within these groups, knowledge isn't inherited, it's taught. Calves spend years observing every hunt, learning what to target, how to approach it, and what works. Over time, observation becomes skill. Skill becomes tradition. Different orca populations developed different specialities. Some became experts at hunting herring, others mastered seals hiding on ice. In rare documented case, pods turned their attention to one of the ocean's most formidable predators, the great white shark. That was the true advantage of port and starboard. Knowledge passed across generations, creating expertise that no lone shark could ever match. That brings us to the biggest difference between these animals. The great white shark is fundamentally a loner, ambush predator, built for one explosive burst of speed, one decisive strike, quiet retreat. For 400 million years, that strategy was enough. Never needed coordination. Orcas are built differently, as individuals and as groups. Group behaviour is where the real power lies. Scientists filmed orca pods working in near-perfect synchronisation, groups creating waves together to wash seals off ice, each surfacing in coordinated rhythm. Pods herding fish schools into tight, swirling balls, taking turns feeding while others hold formation. Pods documented working together to flip prey many times their size. Teamwork cancelling out the advantages that make a solo attack impossible. Apply that model to the great white shark. A lone orca wouldn't enjoy the overwhelming advantage a pod provides, but killer whales rarely hunt alone. While one orca occupies the shark, others position themselves to limit escape options. While the shark focuses on the nearest threat, others can approach from a different angle. Every movement becomes part of a larger strategy. By the time the shark understands what is happening, it isn't facing a single predator. It's facing a coordinated unit. Great white is a weapon. Orca pod is an army. And throughout nature, coordination repeatedly defeats raw power. That is what makes killer whales among the ocean's most effective apex predators. What happens to an entire ocean when an apex predator suddenly leaves? It's never about two species. When great white sharks abandon a region, the effects move through the whole food web. Cape fur seals, the primary prey great whites kept in check, grow in number, shift behaviour with nothing to fear. That affects the fish population seals feed on, and the kelp forests those fish depend on. Researchers studying these waters documented the ripple effect, shifts in seal behaviour, changes in smaller shark and ray populations great whites once suppressed, early signs of an ecosystem rearranging around a predator no longer there. It's never about which animal is tougher. It's about an ocean whose most feared animal discovers it isn't anymore. The great white didn't leave because it lost a fight. No fight. It left because the first time in its 400 million year history, it encountered something with no answer. Not raw size, not speed, but coordination, culture, knowledge passed across generations. It didn't run because it was weak. It ran because, for the first time, it recognized something stronger. In an ocean whose power structure hasn't changed in millions of years, that moment might be the most significant shift of all. Which encounter shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more of nature's most intense moments.